See, look. You know what I mean? And now you won't be in the shot. So as they're talking about it, you know what I mean, Shawn? Now here, let's look from that side. Does it look better doing it from that side? Look. Look at the TV. Look at the TV. Does it look better from this side? You know, while they're talking about it.
Well, I mean, when you go in, like, I think it looks better. We'll have the interior better from that angle. Yeah. See what I'm saying?
I can't see it.
Well, yeah. See, this is the better angle for the interior.
Kind of like that, but we're going to do yeah, so let's talk about the car, and then that's what we'll see. And then we'll go going on. Okay. Yeah. All right, you got 30 seconds. Till the show starts? Yeah. All right. Pretty simple. I did maintain this thing. What about the lights and everything?
December 2019 edition. So it's an amazing collection of cars tonight. And we've got a guest that I met just yesterday at the Festivals of Speed. So we're going to get into some conversation with Jim Goldsmith. But first, I just wanted to mention the diversity of cars out here tonight. It seems like we've got just about every era represented, except for maybe the 356s. I don't see any 356s out here tonight, but we've got a great representation across the board. Water-cooled, air-cooled cars, old cars, new cars. It's really a good group tonight. So Jim, I want to say, thanks so much for being on with us and saying yes yesterday when I saw you out at the Festivals of Speed. And you've got a really wonderful car. I'm biased because we own a 1989 911 Targa, and the star of the show tonight is your 1977 911S Targa. And when I saw it yesterday, it just really caught my attention. And I'm so glad we got a chance to talk out at that event and that you're here tonight. So maybe we can get started and just talk a little bit about how you got into Porsche. Where did all this start for you?
Sure, absolutely. And first of all, just thanks for having me on here. It's great to have my car featured here, and it's great for it to get a little bit of attention. So yeah, Porsches have been in my blood for a long time. And my father had a 69 911S. He's had a whole bunch of 911s. My mom's car was a 914. And when I came along, they was trying to get a family car, so they ended up getting another 911. And so I was born in 78. This is a 77. They purchased a 75 brown 911 when I was born to take me home from the hospital. My mom went out of town for a weekend. My dad ended up racing somebody in it, ended up totaling it, and with the money they got from that, they ended up buying this. So
no kidding. So this car has been in your family since new. Did she purchase it brand new?
She purchased it in 1979, I believe. So
okay, so maybe
it was about 2 years old.
About 2 years old.
And so yeah, I mean, this has been in my family since 1979.
Since 1979. So, well, that's such a great story. We have our car we purchased in 2004, but I have so it's kind of a funny connection here. I have a 1975 914.
Oh, no kidding.
That was my first Porsche. I purchased in 1983 with the loan from my dad, and still have the car today. So, but you guys, I think, have had yours a little bit longer. So that's really cool to hear about and to see. So, it was for your mom. So she was really into the brand as well as your dad.
Absolutely, yeah. My mom was obsessed with Porsches. This was. Unfortunately, I lost my mom in 2006, and this was her prized possession. She loved this car. I lived in Massachusetts, and so we had kept this at their place in Florida, and so, this was a daily driver back when, for the first, call it 5 years. afterwards, they took it to Florida, put it at their place here, and so we drove it on vacations and things like that.
Wow.
But she just absolutely loved this car, and when I went to law school, they gave it to me, and I drove it through law school, and then when she passed away, I inherited it. And so, you know, I ended up fixing it up when I got married to have a little bit of my mom at the wedding. So we
Oh, cool.
so we had this, you know, it was all fixed up, and you know, took all, you know, our photos and the wedding photos with it, and my wife, you know, was amazingly cool with it. So that was a nice thing.
So is your wife into the cars too? Is she supportive, or is she?
My wife is incredibly supportive. She is. She comes from a car family too. So
Okay.
her family's from Detroit, and so her grandfather on one side worked for Chrysler his whole career. The grandfather on the other side worked for Ford his whole career. So they've got yeah, it's a big car family.
Wow, that's
So
great.
It's terrific.
What's happening right now is pretty much like clockwork. Whenever we start the show at 7:30, a train comes rolling through. So it'll come rolling through, and we'll just deal with it. But, so your mom gets this car. She was daily driving. It was her car, full
Absolutely,
on.
yeah.
It was her deal. And so, what are your memories of it as a kid? You know, riding in it and so forth. What
It was great. I mean, it was, you know, it doesn't have air conditioning, and so it lived in Florida most of my basically as far back as I can remember. So the top was always down. It sat.
Oh, hold on. We got to let it roll by. We'll wave to the conductor. Say thanks for coming by every show. I think he likes the show. He must be.
Yeah.
He must be into the show. Anyway, so you were saying that the early memories of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it lived in Florida. You know, pretty much the top was always down, no AC. So just always, you know, as you're on vacation, it was just kind of a fun thing. You know, my mom would, you know, she was a spirited driver. Really? And yeah.
She ever take her to the track?
No.
No.
that
She just loved to really
was not her
drive.
thing, but she definitely enjoyed driving it. So yeah, it was just, you know, spending time with my mom in it, and you know, she talked about it a lot, and
Yeah.
it was a fun thing.
Well, that's it's really cool that you did that at the wedding. And what do you think she'd be saying right now if she was standing in the back right here? What would she be saying?
I don't know. I mean, I think she'd be thrilled to see her car. That's, you know, it's probably in the same condition she got it when it was, you know, 2 years old now. So I think she'd be thrilled to see that. You know, it's funny. There were a couple things that she disliked about the car, which I ended up fixing on it. So
What were those?
you know, so for 1977, I forget when it was, but probably when they first put on this bumper design, they jacked up the car to meet the 5 mile per hour bumper regulations.
Sure.
So I think her mechanic had told her, well, we could drop it down for you back, you know, so it looks like the pre low speed bumper cars, and so she'd wanted that to get done. So I did that. What else do we do to that? I don't know.
That was about it.
I mean, there were a
So
bunch
you
of other
kept the
random
same.
stuff
I
to
mean,
it,
it's
but-
all original wheels, right?
Yep, the wheels are
The original wheels.
It's got, you know, the engine's had a lot of work done to it. It's got high compression pistons, SC sport cams. It's had some work done to the head. It's got backdated heat exchangers, free flow, dual exhaust. You know, the suspension's got stiffer torsion bars. It's got upgraded. I don't know.
Who
It's-
knows?
it's
the list
got-
is
it's got a lot of
too
stuff.
long.
I mean, it's
So,
been a-
what has the body ever been redone, or is this pretty much the original body?
well, I mean, it's been resprayed a couple of times now. So
Okay.
So when for the wedding, a local guy here redid it. Jose Del Toro does a phenomenal job, and yeah, he resprayed it. He took the whole car apart. I can show you the trunk. I mean, everything came out of the car.
Yeah.
When I had the engine work done, we dropped the engine and then brought it back to him, and so he resprayed, you know, the whole engine bay and everything like that.
So you've
So
been through. It's really been well cared for.
yeah, but you know, pretty much original. I mean, all numbers matching. The interior's mostly original. I just recovered the seats, but otherwise, it's you know, re-dyed the carpets, that kind of thing.
Wow. So I saw you yesterday out at the show. Do you do shows with it? Do you like to show the car? Is
I don't
like that over the years, or that was kind of an unusual thing?
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever done one. I just thought it would be kind of neat to go out and do it, and it was surprising. I mean, I never really figured myself as a car show kind of guy, but you know, I've always enjoyed going to car shows. I never really envisioned being in a car show, but it was just so much fun talking to people about the car and talking about, you know, my mom's experience with the car and fixing it up. And yeah, I was just kind of surprised by the level of interest I got.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me because, you know, you go to shows and you see a lot of cars, but honestly, you don't see, you know, period correct special cars that are, you know, original like this one. Yeah, you've got a few modifications too.
Sure.
Probably the concourse judge may, you know, give you a little bit of grief on, but by and large, this car is sort of stock.
Yeah.
The only thing I noticed, you had painted the fan on the engine a different color. That's about it that I saw in the car. I mean, you had so many other things. I wanted to ask you, when I looked at the car yesterday, the interior looked beautiful, but I saw these mats, and it looked as if the floor mats are houndstooth.
They are, yeah.
So tell me about that. How did you come up with those mats? I've never seen that in one of these cars before.
Yeah, I've never seen it either. I mean, you know, it's gotten really popular now to have the houndstooth inserts in the seats.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I had recently recovered the seats, and you know, so I didn't want to redo them again. And so I started looking for a way to kind of get that look into the car. I mean, the car, there's just a lot of like blackness inside of it. And
because it's the first time that I've seen the houndstooth on the mats. Thought it was cool. When I first glanced at it, I thought it was like a cocoa mat, you know, from back in the day, sort of those. But then when I looked closer, I saw the houndstooth. I'm like, man, that's pretty cool.
yeah, it's actually from a company in Poland called Carbone.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of
And so yeah,
liveries,
they sell
yeah.
some stuff on Pelican parts.
Sure.
But these, I just, you know, I found it like going through Instagram and, you know, trying to find, you know, somebody who made this, and lo and behold, somebody in Poland does make the mat. So
Wow.
So I ordered from them. I wasn't sure if I'd ever get something delivered. You know, you just never know. And they
it
arrived
worked out.
2
No,
weeks
I've
later,
heard a
they're
lot of
beautiful.
good things about those guys.
Yeah.
That they're, you know, stand-up guys, great products, and
Yeah,
support
they make some
support
beautiful
everything
stuff,
real
yeah.
well. Well, so maybe talk about some experiences outside of when you were younger.
Sure.
You've had the car. When did you inherit it? When did you actually bring it home?
Well, so you know, I mean, I got it. This became my daily driver in law school. So you're talking 2000. I was in law school 2000, 2003. So I was living in Tallahassee, and you know, I drove this to school. You know, when I was working, I mean, again, it doesn't have AC, so I'd be working and I have to take off my suit. Usually drive shirtless, so I wouldn't sweat through my clothes in the summertime, and then, you know, arrive at court, get dressed, and go to court. You know, it became a second car, you know, after I got a job, and just became more of a hobby and a fun thing. This was my first DE car.
Oh, right.
So the first DE I ever did, I have a 1987 944 turbo at home, which I had gotten already for my first DE, and I was super excited about it. And it started raining right beforehand. I think I put in the mechanic to get checked down. It got rained on, and the rain went through, you know, underneath the battery, ended up shorting out the computer, and so I was left without a car like the day of the DE. So I thought, okay, well, I've got this. I've never really considered, you know,
Putting it on the track.
beating on it.
It was so
but-
nice and so beautiful.
Yeah, so, but, you know, I was like, well, you know, Mom probably wouldn't mind. So I hopped in it, drove it to Sebring, and then had my first DE in it. So it was a fun experience
I bet that
getting
was.
out there. Yeah.
I mean, Sebring, you know, so much history.
Yeah.
You know, so much sort of hallowed ground, you know, for
Okay.
sports cars.
Absolutely.
We love sports cars. So much cool stuff has gone down at Sebring, and I remember the first time that I took a car out to that track. It was a really special time. And then it's at that moment that you really realize how rough a place that is. They've smoothed it out in a lot of the other sections of the infield, but there's so many parts that are
It
still the
definitely
old,
beats you up, though.
the concrete runway areas are,
Yeah.
you know, kind of crazy.
And then you come out of turn 17, you're looking at that wall, and you're just thinking like, oh God.
Yeah, hopefully everything stays together,
Yeah.
right?
So that was a really fun experience, and I ended up doing a bunch of DEs afterwards and doing, you know, some really basic racing, like chump car type stuff. And,
Oh, okay.
and I had a lot of fun with it. So it's nice for this to get started with this car.
It's fun when you can, you know, drive it for its
Mm-hmm.
you know, but for me, a Porsche, yeah, you can take your Porsche and take it to the racetrack and then drive it to work the next day, no question. But what about any touring? Have you taken it up to the mountains? Have you taken it across country, or has the car mainly stayed here in the state of Florida?
Yeah, I wish I did, but no, I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet with it. So yeah, it's pretty much been it stayed here. I drive it around when I can. It's it gets out about once a month now, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of toys.
Yeah, well, that's great. Now, you mentioned your dad, and we were talking a lot about your mom.
Yeah.
And this being her car, but your dad was a big influence on cars for you as well.
Yeah. No,
and so
absolutely.
he owned all these 911s.
My dad had, he had everything. I mean, from he was a big Jaguar XKE guy. He had a couple of those. He had 911s. He had a bunch of the smaller British cars. He got into Pontiacs, had a number of Firebirds.
Wow, so you had you saw all kinds of things growing up.
He currently has a 991, 911 right now. So yeah, always had a lot of fun with him, and he was a spirited driver in his own right. I think when this came to Florida, he and one of his Army buddies took it here, and I think they were doing about 120 most of the way until they ended up at a rest stop, and they heard some truck drivers saying, "Could you believe that silver car that's just been flying down 95? I hear the police are out after him." So
they were on the chase. So it was Smoking the Bandit.
Yeah, I think it probably wasn't too long after the movie. So after that, they kept their foot off the gas a little bit.
Wow, well that's so cool.
But no, my dad's a big car guy. I've tried getting him to the track, but he's at this point he's 75. He's not super into it, and is not incredibly thrilled about my track pursuits, but he's been very encouraging in his own right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I heard you talking to some folks out here earlier. It seems like you've been involved in the PCA for a number of years, and the PCA is such an awesome organization because it does give you opportunities to do things differently with your car, to be able to drive them, as I mentioned before, for their intended purpose, on the track and whatnot, and to really do it in a safe way. They're always thinking about safety. They're always looking after that aspect of it. But there's no question that there is that element of the unknown. Anytime you take a car out onto the track, you never know what can happen. So I get the concern from your dad. He's just looking after you and wanting the best for you. But I definitely get it. But it's great to see that you've been involved with the club over the years. We have a lot of folks that come out here every month that are involved with the club, and so it's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, the nice thing with PCA is, there's something for everybody, who's part of it. So, if you're into car shows, they've got a lot of people who are into car shows. If you're into track days, they have those people. If you're into racing, they have those people. And if you're just hanging out and drinking beers and talking about cars,
exactly.
Everybody does that too. So
never drinking beers and then driving the car, though. No, that would never happen. I was talking to a gentleman here tonight he was a Harley guy, and now he's gotten Porsche. And he said, "Hey, a Boxster is the progression for me. I rode bikes for 25 years, and now I can jump into a Boxster, take the top down, and just have a blast." And our very own Crazy John, who does the show with us here, he bought a Boxster. He's never owned a Porsche before. About a year ago, he bought a Boxster. So a lot of guys, we can start to convert some of these bike guys into being Porsche guys and have.
Hopefully so. Yeah. It's a similar experience. I have a bike too. I have a Ducati Sport 1000, and it's it's a lot of fun to be out there. But it's not totally dissimilar from being in a fast convertible.
Maybe it's a good segue, and we'll wrap up. And thanks so much for coming on with us. But we talk to people about the Targa. The uniqueness of this particular model of Porsche. Maybe you just talk about that a little bit. What are your impressions about
the Targa itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think Porsche was one of the first. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're one of the first to pioneer the concept.
Absolutely.
You get the structural rigidity of in a sense of a coupe, but you have the ability to take the top down and get some fresh air.
Or the top off in this case.
Yeah.
Right. When we took it off a little bit earlier, you just how it works.
It's just an accordion. It folds up. You throw it in the trunk when you're driving around, and it's surprisingly easy to take off and put back on. But yeah, it's a neat idea. The original ones had I think the plastic backs.
Yeah, they call them the soft window Targas,
which looked a lot cooler than I think they worked. But
for sure,
they were definitely cool cars.
Yeah, the wind and aerodynamics take over in that equation, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it probably wasn't. When was it? So with the SC, where they developed their first convertible.
Right, in the 80s, in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a great car. It's been enjoyable. I'd say the only downside with them is they're not the most weather resistant.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like
everybody owes the Targa is always asking the next guy, hey, does yours leak? Does your top leak?
I think I asked two guys that.
Yeah. At the show yesterday,
yeah.
I heard you talking about it. But that's a very common conversation amongst Targa owners for sure.
Yeah, my car smelled like a boat for years. I mean, when I was living in Tallahassee, I parked it outside, so it would rain. I just put towels along the side, so it was on the freshest.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, we got the train coming by. No, now they're going both directions here. We had it earlier, going north, and now I guess this is going southbound now.
We could end it the way we started it.
So, well, again, Jim, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your car with us, sharing a little bit of story. You know, shout out to your mom. I'm sure she's looking down on us and just really smiling on the whole situation tonight. We're glad to be able to showcase your car for everybody here, for you to have to have some fun, to come on and talk about it, and come out and see us anytime out at Porsche Night.
Absolutely.
Tell your friends. We're always looking for more people to come out here, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Sounds great. I really appreciate it.
You can hang out with us here just for a minute. We're gonna sort of switch things up, and but again, thanks for coming out. All right, so we're gonna jump into the next portion of our show here. And we're going to talk a little bit about our experience this past week. Myself and my wife actually went up to Atlanta, Georgia. And I had a training to attend with Porsche on the new all-electric sports car, the Porsche. If you haven't heard about that, it's just that, the first electric Porsche. And it is just a phenomenal car. And we had the opportunity to head up that way and see Porsche Cars North America and see the PEC. So without further ado, we're going to sort of bring in my daughter, Amanda Cheney, who you saw on the show last month for the first time. She came in and did a little guest hosting. And we're going to do this. Talk to us a little bit about our experience up in Atlanta, that we saw, the cars that we drove, just sort of our and Friday Atlanta area. So come on in and come on in and maybe it'll be better on the end. Why don't you grab the end and Mob, come right in here. All right, so this is how it works on live broadcast. We just sort of roll with it, right? So it's nice to see you again, Amanda, on the show. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, absolutely. You're back. I think, we had so many comments about it from people who saw the show. They really appreciated all that you put into it last month. So I think it's another great opportunity tonight. You're on. It's just we got the speaker down a little bit low. I guess it's normal stuff, technical stuff. Maybe not. You have to turn it on. Okay. The first rule in broadcasting is turn the mic on.
You would think I would know that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Turn the mic on. Are we good?
Yeah.
We're good to go? All right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Amanda. Let's just talk about your mom and I's trip up to Atlanta.
Yeah. So it was a quick trip. From what I understand, you guys were gone for a day, not even, right?
That's right.
Okay. So how were you just invited out there? Who told you, hey, Brian, you're going to go up to Atlanta? How did you get the invitation?
Well, I was in the dealership almost 2 months ago, and I heard this voice, Brian, come in here. And it was Chris. And he said, hey, you're going to Tycon training, So there you go. There's the invite.
All
so
right.
when your boss tells you you're going to training, you're going to training.
Right, of course.
You just say yes.
And how did you bring along your wife?
Well, I just thought it was a really cool opportunity to be able to do something like that. In the car business, you don't get a lot of time off, right? So I thought it was a great opportunity that we could be together and do something kind of special. I had been up there before, and I was telling your mom all about it, and I just thought it'd be a great opportunity for her to get to see it and to have a little fun along the way. I'm not going to lie, the first session that we had there on Thursday night was a short session, but it was intense. And then the whole next day, it was a full day of training. So I had to get tuned in, but at the same time, we had some fun. So, maybe you can...
Yeah, what was your experience like? What was your favorite part?
participate on Thursday. We flew in early, very early flight, and then we went over to the Porsche Experience. Brian has a buddy there, Ray Schaefer. Ray Schaefer, who met up with us and took us on a like a little private tour of the museum there, and it was very cool. Saw lots of very cool cars and had lunch at the 356 Cafe and got to watch the cars that were another part of the experience, where you actually got to drive the cars and they would get on wet surfaces and spin or try not to spin. But it was cool. It was fun. It was very good time.
So you said you've been to the Porsche Experience before. So just give like an overview to some people who may not even know what it is.
Well, Porsche Experience Center is just that. It's all about Porsche. So this is the headquarters to Porsche Cars North America, #1. And then the Experience Center was built there. So the Experience Center encompasses a track for, like learning how to drive your car for its purpose. And whether it be the sports cars, the four-door sedan and the Panamera, or in a Cayenne in an off-road situation, because they have a total off-road area where they can take you out and really show you what those vehicles are capable of, aside from just being, four-door SUVs like everyone else drives them. So you have that whole track, and you can get instruction, from professional instructors. They teach you all the ins and outs, how to performance drive your car. Or if you just want to go up there and drive a car that maybe you're thinking about purchasing, and you're just not sure which one, well, there's sessions that you can do for as little as maybe $350 for about an hour and a half, and you get to drive a brand new Porsche, and they go up from there through all the different models, so you can do that. They also have a museum and something called the Heritage Gallery, and that's why Ray Schaefer, he actually has a responsibility for sort of curating that area, the Heritage Gallery. So from time to time throughout the year, he's pulling in cars from all over the country to make very special displays. We were there. It was kind of cool because they had the 914 display. It's the 50th anniversary of the 914 this year, and so he had this beautiful display of all these different 914s. He put together just an awesome collection of that. So you have the Heritage Gallery. You also have Porsche Classic restoration there. So for years in Germany, if you wanted to have your classic Porsche restored, Porsche would do that for you right, in the factory. Well, they've brought that ability here to the U.S., and you can get restorations done at Porsche Classic Workshop at the PEC in Atlanta too. Of course, you have all the offices for Porsche Cars North America. You have Porsche Financial Services there. So this is really sort of the epicenter for Porsche corporate in the U.S. There's another PEC in Los Angeles. So, wow, long answer, I guess.
Yeah, wow.
But a lot of stuff happening there. And if you're into Porsche, or even if you're just a car person, maybe you're not totally into Porsche, going up there to experience this is it's something it's really cool. It's really special, and it's so easy to go up from here.
Right. So that was a long answer. I don't know how to pick from that. But one thing that stuck out to you were you're talking about new cars there. Yeah, they have the old ones you can drive, but they also have new cars. So you were invited specifically for the newest Porsche. So that was the Taycan. So kind of explain how this is. You talked to us about it all weekend, just about how cool it is and all these different features of it and how it's the best of the best. And just give us an overview of the Taycan.
Well, Taycan all-electric Porsche, and I had an idea of what this car was about because I've been reading about it and seeing videos on it and hearing about it for a number of years. And when you actually see it in person, it just completely changes from everything that you've seen in the pictures. It comes alive. Driving it takes it to a whole other level. And all I can tell you is that this is a Porsche in the truest form in every way. When you see it, the style of it just jumps out at you. You just can't stop looking at it. You're looking at every little piece of it to sort of take it all in because there's got a lot of details in it. When you drive it, it's an experience like I've never had before. The performance is off the charts, as my friend Russ Kranick says, usually talking about food or wine when he talks about it.
Cars
But
instead.
but it's off the charts in the car world. The performance, the acceleration is just, that's what people think about typically with an electric car, is just this unbelievable acceleration and torque. But that's not where it ends with this car. It just sort of starts there. That's what grabs your attention. And then the car, how it's built, the fit and finish of it, the design of it, and then how it actually maneuvers, how it handles. It's just crazy. We were driving for a couple hours, and it was all in wet conditions, driving rain. And we were doing things with this car in wet conditions that sometimes you wouldn't even think about doing in dry conditions. So it's an amazing, amazing car. I just can't say enough about it. I'm not like the person who wants to run out and grab an electric car and be the early adopter by any stretch, right? I'm a gearhead, petrol head as they call us. But after driving this car, I could totally see myself driving an electric Porsche every day and being completely happy.
Okay, so give us some of the smaller details. You talk about how much power it has and what it can withstand and whatnot, but one thing that has stuck out to me ever since you showed us videos were the sound it makes. It's not, obviously it's electric, so it's not going to make a sound that a 914 or 911 might make, but like, explain the sound. The first thing that comes to my mind was a space shuttle.
A spaceship,
like,
right?
It felt like we were on Space Mountain at Disney and you're driving a car. So kind of explain that technology, or I don't even know, is it technology?
I saw one of the lead engineers, or the man over the Taycan project, talk about this probably a year ago. And they said this was something that they were really concerned with, because an electric car, you're right, it doesn't make a sound. And for people who have, when you've driven a car all your life, your connection to the car is not only through the sensations of the car going down the road, but it's the sound of the car. People who love cars, you can play a soundtrack of a car and they can tell you what it is. They can tell you it's a Ford or a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Subaru or a whatever. People can really tune into this. So that's an important part, I think, about the whole car experience. So what Porsche did is something really smart, okay? They knew that they had to solve the problem inside the car, so that when you're driving the car, you're still excited to drive the car, and maybe something that's a little familiar is there. But then they also knew that if this car is rolling through a parking lot or in an urban area that it's rolling 25 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, and someone's standing on the street corner and you can't hear this car coming out, you might just walk out into the street and not even know it, right? So they needed to have a sound on the exterior too, so they did two things. They've taken the sound that the electric motor makes, the actual sound. So this wasn't created, out of someone's imagination. It's the sound from the electric motors in the car, and they've shaved the high frequencies off of that sound. And now they put this sound into the rear cabin of the car through a speaker. It just makes the coolest sound. It's amazing. So it's real. It's really following the sound of the car, but it's just sort of enhanced, and it gives you this real sort of, it's hard to describe because I've never heard anything like it, but I think your description is pretty good. That it sounds sort of like a spaceship, but it also sounds like a car. On the exterior, I think it sounds even more like a car, sort of that low-speed rumble of a car as you pull into a parking spot, or maybe drive away slowly. It makes all that. So it covers both spectrums. And one thing that I learned about that is that every single person that I'm going to be speaking to who orders the car, I'm going to say, you have to put Porsche electric sound into this car, because it just really makes it.
Right. So we talked about that a little bit. So did you actually get to see the car go? Like, were you able to stay outside and listen to the car like he's saying, or?
No, not really.
You weren't allowed?
No, yeah. And it was raining, and they were on these mountain roads, so they had gone away from the PEC actually itself. So I really didn't get to hear anything. No.
But you saw it on display somewhere.
I saw it on display,
Right.
yeah. I didn't get to sit in it or you could peek through the windows, but that's about it. But it's very, very, very cool looking and very different looking. It is.
So as someone who, you've obviously known him with all of his different Porsches, but what kind of similarities do you see in that car to some other ones you've seen, or is there any at all? Is it totally different?
Well, and at first it kind of looks like a Panamera, but then if you put the two side by side, it does not look like a Panamera. And so it's the size of it is between a 911 and a Panamera. It's in between those two.
Yeah, so it's still a Porsche looking car. Like it's
Yes.
not,
Oh, yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
look
yeah.
like another electric car you've seen on the road
No.
or anything like that.
It definitely still has the
different.
Porsche look. Yes.
Right. Okay, talk about how now we have self-driving cars. I mean, this is insane. You showed a video where a lady was driving the car, you're in the passenger seat, and her hands are not touching the wheel at all. Like, the car's going. Like, it's, I thought it was fake, but obviously it's not fake. It's real life.
Yeah, it was real.
Train again.
I don't know if you can do a train with your hands off the wheel.
Can we pump the train sound through the car?
Maybe, yeah. if Porsche can figure out how to put electric sound, we can do a train sound too. But as I said, the sound is really authentic in that car.
Right,
it's really
of
coming
course.
from
We're
the
not
motors.
gonna cheat
Let's
anything.
not cheat on that. Self-driving cars. Thank you. It's called autonomous driving. That's the correct automotive term for it.
Not self-driving.
Not self-driving. Autonomous driving.
Okay.
The Taycan is not a totally autonomous driving car, but it is somewhat. It's got a technology called Porsche InnoDrive, and basically what this does is it is a camera out of the front of the car and a radar system, and it has traffic sign recognition, and it's also looking at the lines on the road. So it combines all that with GPS. So you put in your destination. It's taking into account GPS, but it's also taking into account terrain, so rises and so forth. And if you put in a destination, it basically maps out for you how to get to that destination in the most efficient manner possible, and will keep you within the lanes of the road. So you could take your hands off, and we experienced that in the Taycan the other day. We were on a rural highway. We were going about the speed limit.
Yeah,
right. and we tested it out. My friend Haley, who's a Porsche saleswoman, awesome. She does an awesome
we need
job.
to get her on the show.
Yeah,
Come on.
we'll have to get her over here.
More females on
Yeah,
the
that's right.
Porsche
We
Night.
need to bring more. We need to bring more women in Porsche, right? And she set it all up. I mean, she set up the InnoDrive, and we started going, and then she goes, "Yeah, check it out." And she took her hands off the wheel, and we're just like watching it. And I'm like, "Wow, this is so cool," you know?
You weren't nervous at all?
No,
No?
no, not at all. And then what we noticed was we slowed down now, and we came to a stop. The car completely stopped, because that's part of the technology as well. But we were on an incline, and she noticed that if she took her foot off the brake, the car continued to inch forward. So I thought with an electric car, basically you take your foot off the accelerator, the car would stop going, and it does it not in a real smooth fashion. Well, Porsche's figured out a way with a special mode in the car where when you take your foot off the accelerator, the car coasts, and it almost coasts more than a regular combustion engine. So that was another driving impression that I got from the car, that when I said I could see myself driving this every day, that's what I meant. It drove more like a combustion engine car. It just didn't have all that sound, but it was familiar in all the other ways. So that's what I thought was pretty cool. But when we were on the incline and it continued to inch forward, we both looked at each other like, "What's going on here? You know, what's the deal?" So that's what's in Taycan. It's not completely autonomous, but it's called Porsche InnoDrive.
And is that in any other Porsche, or is that strictly for the
Yes.
Taycan?
Yeah.
It is in
Yeah. And we're going to see it more and more in Porsche moving forward. I suspect. In fact, I've heard people saying it's just Porsche's way of using technology to sort of map out, more places all around the country, so that when they do decide to do autonomous driving, they'll be ready. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard people say that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about kind of the training. You said the first day was very intense. It was a lot of, I'm assuming we're in a classroom or something that was very
Yeah, the first
knowledgeable,
night, it
or
was
how
only
was
about
it?
an hour long, but there was an excitement about it, but there was a real seriousness about it too, because this is a big thing for the company, for Porsche. They've invested literally billions of dollars into this technology, and really in our lifetime, we've never seen as much change in the automotive industry as we're about to see with all of this electrification of cars, electric cars. So it's a huge thing for the company. So there was definitely a serious tone about it. There wasn't anybody with their hand on their phone, and we didn't have to be told that. Everyone just really understood the moment, and that we really need key in and really sort of sink in, to learn about the car, understand what it is. And there's a lot to do with it. And so that was the first day. And then, I don't know, you had a question about second day? Or you just...
I can ask a question about second day.
Okay,
Sure.
I'm sorry, I don't remember what you said.
What did you have to kind of learn in that first day to bring it over to, okay, now I need to learn all about this car driving capabilities in that way?
It was just sort of getting familiar with it. You know, when you see it in pictures, it's one thing, but now when you actually sat in it and you started touching the controls and you sat in the back seat and you opened the trunk and you're looking around it, now it comes to life, right? So that really helped, I think, to set the stage for the next day, when you started to learn more about the systems, the technology that's in them, and they sort of did a little change up for us. We did one little session in the morning, and then they put us right in the cars. We had about, I don't know, 4 or 5 different groups, so we got in it right away. So cool that we got to do that, and then we went through other things through the course of the day. But that's kind of what sort of what teed it up and got you into it.
Right, so it sounds like an honor, like, to be able to go up there, learn all about this. Like, obviously not every Porsche salesperson has that even. So how does that kind of, now that you go back to the dealership, you're in Orlando now, like, how do you bring that over to help your dealership specifically? Because not everyone knows it. So how are you gonna sell this thing to everyone?
You're right. It is an honor. All kidding aside, I mean, it is. It's really cool. I was really glad to have the opportunity. It was only about 300 salespeople from the dealerships around the country, and there's a couple hundred dealerships. And probably every dealership, I don't know what the average number is, but I know we have 8 at our dealership. So many more people out there. So there's only about 300 that went through this first wave. There's going to be a launch, as we call it, of the vehicle and training in the month of March, where I hear we're all going to get to go to California and now really drive the car more and go even more into depth on the car. So I think what you do is you come back to the dealership and you do what we're doing right here. We're talking about it. We're sort of sharing our stories, impressions. I know I was talking to some customers today, sort of telling them what I experienced, just to sort of transfer this over to people, because there's probably not many people. There's probably, I'm going to guess and say, because the U.S. market is the first market for Taycan. It's not being rolled out anywhere else. It'll be the U.S. first. So we're really the first salespeople in the world to be trained on it. So probably the number of people who have actually, been in it and driven it, I'm sure it's, probably less than 500 around the world by the time you add it all up. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
And I would imagine that they're not, or they make many of, right? Is there going to be like a list every year? You're only going to have this many, or how is it going to
that's pretty much how it works
Yeah.
with Porsche across, all the cars, especially with Taycan. We started taking reservation deposits for the car over a year ago, and the reservation deposits added up, and they added up to 20,000 around the world. And Porsche then decided to double the production. So they've now committed to building 40,000 cars in the first year. So we'll see how all that, sort of rolls out. And we get the car on road and people see it and drive it and their friends show it to them and see where it all goes. But I know that by the year 2025, Porsche has said that half of our production will be with either all-electric Porsche or hybrid electric Porsche. So that's pretty cool stuff,
That's
pretty
not
serious
very
stuff.
far away either.
No, I mean, that's just around the corner.
Right. Okay, I don't know how much time we have. Are we wrapping up?
Oh, well, no, we're good. We're good.
Still going?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What would be your favorite part of the car? Whether it's the sound you were talking about, or maybe something internally with the car that we probably don't know about, but you might.
I think my favorite part of there's 2 things. And it's with anything, any car, and especially a performance car. The number one thing is the driver's got to be comfortable in the car. You got to be comfortable in the seat. The controls have to be, easy to put your hand on. You got to feel comfortable with that wheel in your hand. Your sight lines have got to be good. This car has all of that. It's awesome. Like when you get in it, immediately you're in a Porsche. And I have never been in a Porsche that didn't feel right like that. So that's the number one thing. Excuse me. And then the performance part of it is just off. Like I said, it's off the charts. So you accelerate
There's
with
not one favorite thing.
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah. It's not one. But it's those 2 things.
Yeah.
The driving position, sort of how you feel in the car, and then actually what it does when you start controlling it or trying to control it.
Right. So what would you say? I mean, we don't. I feel like I'd be like you, looking at it. You don't have any favorite specific thing.
No, because I didn't even get to even sit in it.
Okay, so maybe in March when you go to California,
there
you
you go.
bring her
Maybe I
along,
can
and
actually
maybe-
sit in one.
Or there you go.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Well, then I'll come with you. It's
Pretty on the outside, I can tell you that.
All right. Let's see. What else can we talk about? I feel like we kind of covered a lot of bases.
Yeah,
here.
we did cover a lot of bases.
Do you have anyone on your list as a
Oh
salesman
yeah, there's plenty of people,
that
lots
you've
of
talked
people.
with and
Oh yeah.
they're
Oh, yeah.
pretty serious about wanting one?
Oh yeah, they're committed. We got people fully committed. They can't wait, for the car to come in. I'll say this: the experience last week, I just really highly encourage it. Porsche's done it right because they partnered. There's actually a hotel right on site. It's called the Kimpton Overland. You can search that. It's right on the property. You literally walk across the parking lot into the PEC, and it's a really nice hotel. Staff is awesome. There's even a boutique with Porsche design stuff, Porsche branded stuff in the boutique. So you can, if you didn't have enough of the boutique that's at the Porsche Experience Center, you can get more over there. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about the Experience Center. Not only can you drive on the track, but they have these very high-end simulators. So you can get simulation time, and you can drive in just about any car or any type of race car on just about any track all around the world on the simulators. So that's pretty cool, too. I'd just say the whole experience, being able to go there, take it all in, stay on property. The restaurants are fantastic. The 356 Cafe at the PEC. There's a Kimpton as well. The hotel room is cool because there's Porsche stuff on the walls in your hotel room.
For a Porsche geek
Yeah.
like you, just
So,
in love
it
with
doesn't get
everything.
any better than that. We've been around a lot of places, and I've never stayed in a hotel where there's Porsche stuff hanging on the walls. So that
It's like
made
Disney
it fun.
World, but for Porsches.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Atlanta's not far away. I mean,
No.
I don't know where our viewers are, but
Yeah, it's right up the road.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
One
right
quick,
up the road.
One quick flight.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we want to talk a little bit about Toys for Tots, which is a thing that is big at this time of the year. Folks everywhere are supporting that program. And tonight we had a gentleman who had a car that was actually fully wrapped with Toys for Tots. I don't know if we can throw up a picture of that or if we had a picture of it a little bit earlier, but that was pretty cool.
It's right behind us.
Yeah, there's a Toys for Tots car right there. But we had another car too that was fully wrapped with all the Toys for Tots information. So we're taking in toys that people have been dropping off here tonight, and we're going to make those donations to everybody. So it's the right season to do that. It's a great cause, and that's a pretty cool part about tonight as well. So, but I think that's it. Unless you guys have any other questions, did you have anything else you wanted to throw into the mix?
Mom's just here to make us look good. She just sit in the middle.
You're
and
right
make
about
us all
that.
look
I think you're right. I think you're probably right about that. Well, cool. Well, it's been fun again, Amanda. Thanks for coming up, co-hosting on Porsche Night. It's always fun to talk Porsche, but it's even more fun to talk Porsche with your family.
Yes.
So it's very cool. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap us up for Porsche Night December edition. As always, tell your friends about us. Come out and join us on the third Monday of every month for Porsche Night at the Ace Cafe in Orlando. We'll see you next time.